Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the real villain of them all? It's possible that the heroes in Disney's Descendants are actually the villains. It all depends on how you look at it.
Mal promised us freedom, delivering only lies.
Ever since the very first Disney fairy tale, we were certain that we knew who the heroes were, and we thought we knew who the real villains were as well. But what if we were wrong about all of it? It all depends on the way you look at it. From a different perspective, the so-called heroes in Disney's Descendants look a lot like villains. In fact, the heroes of Aradan are capable of some pretty wicked deeds. What do you call it when people are locked up and separated from society? Prison, right? But in Descendants, Belle and Beast rounded up all the evil villains and trapped them on a small island. We're pretty sure they weren't given a fair trial either. So in a land where only one or two people decide who is guilty and who deserves freedom, that's usually the result of power-hungry tyrants ruling the kingdom. That's not exactly what you pictured when you saw Beauty and the Beast ice skating together while birds landed on them, right? Well, as it turns out, they might not be as pure-hearted as they pretend to be. Even if the crimes of Maleficent, Ursula, the Evil Queen, Cruella, Jafar, and Hades are undeniable, what about all the villain kids? They are innocent victims in this whole thing. Their only crime was being born on the wrong side of the barrier. Sure, this is the reason that Ben wanted to bring a select few of VKs over to Aradan from the Isle, but why only a few? We'll get to that more a little later in this video. For now, let's focus on the grievances of one particularly bitter villain who is stuck on the Isle.
I am a god!
The Descendants 3 trailer titled Meet Hades was very telling. It shows a side of life on the Isle that we hadn't seen before. In the trailer, Hades laments at the fact that Belle and Beast decided long ago to cast out those who didn't fit the Aradan mold. They saw themselves fit to decide who was good or bad. Hades claims that Belle and Beast banished everyone who disagreed with them off to a crowded little island with no magic, no freedom, and no hope. Hades believes it has driven him to madness. The Lord of the Underworld possesses a very thought-provoking question. Is every person on the Isle really evil? Do they actually deserve to be stuck there? That's a valid question. Why do Belle and Beast have the final say in who stays in Aradan and who is cast out to the Isle? They created a lot of disdain and bad feelings in the hearts of the villains, and it's only natural that they would harbor grudges against the people who forced them to be prisoners in this dark, miserable place. If the villains had access to a fair due process, they wouldn't have had to resort to other means to find justice. When you think of it from Hades' point of view, it doesn't seem right. The villain kids shouldn't have to pay for the crimes of their parents, and even with Ben's gesture to move some villain kids off the Isle and into Aradan, so many kids were left behind. Additionally, the villains on the Isle were stripped of everything that once made them powerful. Not only were they imprisoned on the Isle, but they also had their titles removed, and they were unable to access any magic. Imagine how difficult that must have been for sorceresses. These villains lost everything, and they had little hope of ever getting it back. It only makes sense that they would plot and scheme to be reunited with their magical powers. Of course, they would do whatever it took to get their hands on Fairy Godmother's wand so they could free themselves. The only alternative is to live out their days in a tiny, hopeless island with no shot at redemption. That would drive just about anybody to madness. If you think about it, it probably wasn't very smart of Beast and Belle to pull all of their enemies together on one tiny little island. They literally have nothing else to do but plot their revenge together. The villains all have one common enemy, the people who imprisoned them on the Isle. So it only makes sense that they would get together to plan an uprising. But most shocking of all is that Beast and Belle broadcast Aradan TV on the Isle. That seems like a mean thing to do. They are rubbing their freedom in the villains' faces. They are enjoying all these fancy parties, nice schools, and new friends while all the villains are forced to watch. Now that's pure evil. And let's talk about the villain kids. Mal, Evie, Carlos, and Jay were the only kids selected to move to Aradan from the Isle. Why just these 4 kids? Aren't all of the kids on the Isle innocent, even if they are a little bit misguided? So it makes sense that the other villains and VKs would presume that Mal and her crew thought that they were better than everybody else. Hades even says it seems like they turned their backs on everyone on the Isle. Who gave Ben the authority to only pick these 4 kids? That seems like a pretty harsh process. Poor Dizzy and the other potentially sweet villain kids were left to rot on the Isle. Not being being chosen obviously made them angry. All of those bad feelings are causing a perfect storm of hatred and revenge, and the Isle is facing Auradon, making the royal kingdom an easy target. Although Ben might have meant well, his plan was far from brilliant. And the cherry on top is that Mal is dating Ben, whose parents are responsible for locking the villains up. It's no wonder some of them feel that Mal has turned her back on her villain friends and family. Mal said she wanted to be good in the first Descendants movie, but how good is she really? Looking at her shady past is an instant reminder of how cruel she once was. Take her history with the supposed scallywag villain of the sea, Uma. If you read about Mal and Uma in the books, it looks like Uma is actually a victim of Mal's mean stunts. A perfect example of Mal's bullying behavior happened years ago on the Isle of the Lost. Mal and Uma once teamed up to prank Cruella de Vil. Mal seemingly fell off the docks into the water and Uma jumped in to save her when she appeared to be drowning. So how does Mal return the favor? By dumping a bucket of shrimp on Uma's head. That is some mean girl stuff right there. Apparently after that incident, no matter how many times Uma tried to wash the shrimp smell out of her hair, it never fully came out. She was disgusted by the fishy smell, and to make matters worse, Mal got everyone to call her Shrimpy. And Mal still calls her Shrimpy to this day. During her arm wrestling match with Uma in Descendants 2, they exchange some wicked banter. Uma tells Mal that she didn't buy her whole princess act for a minute.
You could stick a tiara on a villain, but you're still a villain.
Mal snaps back, saying that Uma can slap a pirate hat on, but she's still just a Shrimpy. That's cold, Mal. We thought you said you chose to be good. For years, Uma has been out for revenge against the girl who made her hair smell like shrimp and gave her that horrible nickname. So basically, Uma spent most of her life being bossed around by her mom and backstabbed by her friends. And to top it all off, she's stuck on the Isle for crimes she didn't commit. The crimes of her mother have forced her into this unbearable existence. And we know we're not supposed to root for Uma, but we really hope she was finally able to get the fish smell out of her hair. It only makes sense that she would do whatever it takes to get off the Isle. And so she kidnapped Mal's boyfriend, attempted to trade him in for Fairy Godmother's wand, and placed a love spell on Ben to get back at Mal. Sure, this has villain written all over it, but the word desperate also comes to mind. So why can we really blame Uma for her actions? Not really, because in the end, she really had no other choice. Mal was supposed to liberate the villain kids from the Isle, but she never even mentioned it to Ben at all. Evie was the only one who proposed the idea of getting some of the villain kids off the Isle and into Auradon Prep. The fact that Mal didn't think of asking her boyfriend, the king, to free the VKs is questionable at best. In fact, it makes her look selfish and cruel. So is Mal the evil one, or are Ben and his parents the evil villains of the story?
We'd love you to join us to Auradon Prep. Will you come? Signed, King Ben.
We know that Dizzy is going to be a part of the Auradon Prep crew moving forward, but what about the rest of the kids? It doesn't really seem fair. When you think about it, Mal hasn't exactly used her magic for virtuous and noble causes since she left the Isle. In the first Descendants movie, she casts a love spell on Ben so she can trick him and steal Fairy Godmother's wand. She gets angry with Jane and uses her spell book to restore Jane's hair to its original look. Mal has proven that she is just as capable of manipulating magic to get revenge. That makes her no different than Uma, right? So what sets these two apart? Is it only the fact that Ben chose Mal, Evie, Carlos, and Jay instead of Uma, Harry, and Gil? Mal once said that she felt she didn't belong in Auradon, which proves that she sees herself as a villain and not a hero. In Descendants 2, she runs back to the Isle. Deep down, Mal is afraid that she is really the bad guy. That must be very confusing for a girl who is trying to be good. From what we've seen in the recent Descendants 3 trailers, Mal could be embracing her dark past and evil roots. The trailers show Mal and Uma fighting on the same side. So is it possible that Mal decides to go back to her wicked ways and team up with Uma to overthrow Auradon? That would require Uma to set aside her quest for revenge against Mal. But Uma is pretty tough and strategic. She could use Mal to get what she wants, and if Hades is Mal's dad, there will still be a strong pull for her to reconnect with her family. Her only other parent parents is a lizard, so she is probably feeling the absence of parental figures right about now. So what if Mal realizes that it has been Ben and his parents who are the real villains all along? Will she side with her dad and Uma to tear down the barrier around the Isle and liberate the innocent villain kids who have been wrongfully exiled? Or will she side with Ben and all her new fancy friends? And we still can't decide whose side Hades is on. Right now it appears that he is only looking out for himself, but who knows how long it's been since he's seen his daughter. He may have a change of heart when he reconnects with Mal, and with Ben becoming a beast like his father, he could go through a pretty dark period when he becomes the very evil his parents have been trying to fight. With this new perspective of villain life on the Isle, you have to wonder who are the real villains of the story. Do you think that Mal, Ben, and the people of Auradon are the real villains and Disney's Descendants? Could Uma and the rest of the villains on the Isle actually be the heroes of their story? Let us know what your verdict is in the comment section below. Thanks for watching The Things. Be sure to subscribe to our channel to be the first to see our latest videos. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. See you later!